week, my wife signed me up to go to Marty Grunder's Grow event in Dayton, Ohio. It's an annual event he puts on for growing your business, not only like what you might think of traditionally as like just growing your gross sales or growing your sales, but growing yourself, internally, mentally, personally, socially, all that kind of stuff. And then with your company, growing it culturally, like with the culture of your company, and just so many different facets, organization-wise, and all that kind of stuff. So I took a bunch of notes. It's 3 days. The event was $1,400. It was very, yeah, that's okay, Randy. Thank you, sir. But the event was 3 days, and it was well worth it. Again, it was $1,400. It was a lot of money, but it was well worth it. Mr. Bo, how you doing? It's my foreman there, friend Dan Foreman. A handful of notes here. So they would have like a panel discussion of other company owners and big company guys too. Marty Grunder, of course, $5 million company. Todd Pugh of Enviroscapes here in Northeast Ohio. He also made the mulch mule. If you've ever heard of the mulch mule, he invented that thing. Jim McCutcheon of the High Growth Partners, $60 million company in Atlanta, Georgia. Frank Mariani, the Mariani Group or Mariani Landscape in Chicago, $60 million company. Mike Rory, Ground Systems, $30 million company in Cincinnati area, and Scott Jameson of Bartlett Tree. I highlighted just a handful of things here of what they talked about. So like I said, first talk scope. This may not be real interesting to some folks. It's not equipment porn or anything like that, but we're talking about business here, so we'll see how this goes. Just trying to share some of the stuff I garnered from this. And two, it's going to be in Tampa next year. If you're interested in growing your business at all, even long-term or just soon, I would suggest going. It's really worth it. They talked a lot about emotional intelligence and how important that is. You can cultivate your emotional intelligence, your actual intelligence. You can't change a whole lot. Just where you are is where you are. And for me, that's a good thing because I'm not going too far intelligence-wise, but I can groom and make my emotional intelligence better. Neely, how you doing? That's our contract excavator there. Marty Grunder says, pay for advertising and pray for publicity. So newspaper articles, public service events and things like that. Try to grow your company through that kind of stuff. Mike Rory of Ground Systems, who built a company, sold it to Brickman, and started a new company after that expired. It took him 20 years to hit $5 million in sales, and it took 7 years to make it to $30 million because they figured out the system. So they got all the bugs out of the way over that long grind and really crushed it. He says choice is a luxury, which I thought was interesting. Have choices in business and just choice general. There's one thing when your back's against the wall and you don't have a choice, but when you get a choice in something, it's a luxury then, right? Another thing I'd heard is a luxury enjoyed once is a necessity thereafter. I always thought that was a cool quote. Don't give your clients 2 steaks. Offer them dessert on top of the steak. I thought that was an interesting quote. So instead of, they put in a 5,000, whatever size landscape or project or mowing or whatever, don't try to sell them the same equivalent value necessarily. So like a $40,000 backyard, try to do the front for $40,000 too. Maybe just offer a $5,000 lighting package or whatever in the back. So offer them dessert on top of that full meal, but don't try to double stuff them or whatever. I thought that was an interesting point. Let's see here. What does your customer, thing to ask your customer, what do they interpret as value or quality? That's the important thing. Like, what do they see in a quality job? What are they looking for as far as quality is concerned? And that's the benchmark or the target you need to hit. There are also some consultants there talking. Jim and Jason from Milford Stanford group. They were really smart guys. Vermeer was a sponsor of the event, as well as a few other companies. And Vermeer ran an ad, a commercial, and I don't know what it's called, but it was one of the best commercials I've ever seen for heavy equipment. And it started out with behind every machine, a promise is made, and they went down this road of like, they stand behind their equipment and all this kind of stuff. So I'm going to rob that, and that's the thing Todd Pugh said. He's got an R&D department. It's called Rob and Duplicate, and I'm going to R&D that because I think we'll make our own commercial out of that. Thank you, Ring. Talking about how every project that we put in, an inherent promise is made that thing's going to stand up, and then we're going to stand behind it too. And I thought that was a really cool concept that we're going to rob and duplicate to an extent, within all legal bounds, of course. So I don't need sued by Vermeer or anything crazy like that. But they had equipment there, super good stuff. Really liked Vermeer. Of course, we're Ditch Witch boys. I think you all know that. But Vermeer's great stuff too, and we use it. We actually bought some Vermeer attachments for our Ditch Witch loader or whatever. Thanks for the Vermeer. Thanks for the shares and invites, guys. Appreciate that. Cool, yeah, actually they're in Pella, Iowa, I believe. Yeah, I guess it's a great facility. The company is really great. The family's really great, I guess. A good organization, I do believe. But I think it's the best equipment commercial ever. I looked on YouTube today for it, couldn't find it. Talking about delegating things when you have one or two guys or more working for you, if they can do 80%, or if they can do what you do 80% or as good 80% wise. Let me start that over. Thank you, Matt Eatman. How you doing? If your guys, or if you have someone working for you that can do whatever you're doing 80% as good as you can, delegate it out and move on, and you yourself move on to the next thing that moves the company forward. They had a HOT policy, H-O-T, honest, open, and transparent. I thought that was a great point. Being just very honest, open, and transparent with your guys. And I feel we're pretty good about that, but I think we're going to do even more in-depth things with our guys as far as like sharing our numbers more in depth so they know where we're at. So they don't think we're just sitting on some pile of money, because it just doesn't work that way, I'm afraid. Looking for people, and these notes are just all over the place, and this scope may go a while. Holy cow. So I don't blame you if you sign off or whatever. Looking for people in places you may not normally look. I've got some buddies that are firefighters. They're great freaking help when they are, yeah, right, Campbell, right. But look at, like people with good attitude, right? So like Chick-fil-A employees are always like so nice and awesome, and that's that culture thing, right, in that company. That's what they expect. I might try to reach out to some of those folks that maybe have a little more leanings towards working outdoors and things like that. So I just thought that was interesting. A lot of these guys handwrite cards to people, especially the older folks in the organizations and businesses and things, where the handwritten note is like a big deal still, and that's fading away, I think. But it still will probably always be a virtue or something that's interesting to people, because like, who handwrites notes anymore? So I'm gonna try to step my game up with that. They also talked about, at their shop tour, we toured Grunder Landscaping there in Dayton, and they use leaf compost for all their plant installs to amend soils and stuff. So also some nuts and bolts of business too. Nickens, how you doing? They don't schedule any work on Friday ever, and that's to play catch up, because that's just inherently going to happen. They have repair tags for broken equipment. They have very clean and organized trucks, very important. They inventory the basics, right? And that makes sense. Your fuels, oils, maintenance stuff, all that kind of stuff. They color code the fuel cans. That makes sense. They dye. This is one thing I thought was really cool. They dye their 2-cycle fuel. You can buy an actual dye to dye your fuel. So like their 2-cycle fuel. Thank you, Nickens. So they dye it green, and so when it's pouring out, it's freaking mixed. I think that's genius. I think that's awesome. We're going to do that. We're going to go to our local oil distributor and buy some of that. A lot of these guys look for farm kids, because there's still a lot of good work ethics in those dudes, and their farm kids are few and far between now, because the way the society's structured anymore. We're getting away from the agrarian society or whatever. And then also, employee referrals. If you've got good guys and you hang out with good people in general, chances are they hang out with good people too, and they may be able to bring good people to your organization. And that's something you want to, explore and look at and see about getting your guys to bring in other good guys, right? Talking to your guys about their goals and dreams, personal and work. Where do they want to go? And hopefully, as an employer, you can be part of that. These are just highlights. It's craziness. You want to make sure your guys are smiling and just being the smilingest, wavingest, nicest dudes out there. I know I try to make sure our guys are always doing that, always smiling at other contractors going on the road, waving, all that kind of stuff. Bo winks at them sometimes. I don't know what that's about, but brings up the newspaper for the end of the road. Just basic little things like that. Just trying to be as awesome as you can be, right? It only makes sense. Landscapers, we're awesome to have, we're blessed to have like an obvious sales tool out in the front yard. So if you look at a property, it's pretty obvious if they need landscaping. You can go cold sell that possibly. You can make a suggestion, as opposed to like inside, you don't know if their plumbing's going bad. It's tough to hit that. But if they've got crappy landscaping, they might want to update it, and you can hit on that. If it's nicely maintained landscaping, well, they're paying somebody to do that, so you can jump in on it there. So that's one thing, us as landscapers and lawn care guys really have a chance to jump in on stuff. We see the opportunity. Yes, that's right. So I thought that was awesome. Looking for, do you have, how can you help your clients outside of just doing landscaping for them? Do they have a book they're trying to promote? Do they have a product or, marketing or whatever? So try to help your clients also with the channels that you have and connections you have. Be a service to them in multiple ways. So I thought that was a good point. Let's see here. A couple other things talking about social media stuff again. Reviews on social media are huge. This kid came in and was talking about how he bought a toothbrush online just based on the reviews he bought. And everybody checks reviews nowadays, right, for products and events and things like that. So they were talking about how important it is that your company has good reviews online. Makes sense, right? But sometimes the stuff you just got to hear to make it connect the dots, right? So Google reviews is huge. Ring will probably tell you that, Brian Ring. Marty Grunder was saying vision must be tethered to reality. And I thought that was a great point of like, we're a tiny little company. We're due $400,000 to $500,000 a year. We're going to grow that. I want to double it right now, but we're going to take it easy and just get structured a little bit better because we're very disorganized. But vision must be tethered to reality. So if I said I want to be a $10 million company next year, not really realistic, is it? But if I said we wanted to do $600,000, it's very possible. So, vision, where you're wanting to go, must be tethered to reality. Now, could we be a $10 million company in 30 years or 20 years? Very possibly. I don't want to be, honestly. I want to hit about $1 million and just be very refined and do the work I want to do and make really good living for myself and my guys. That's where I really want to be ultimately. I sat with some dudes at some tables that were bigger, mostly bigger companies than mine. A dude with a $26 million company sat next to me. Another dude with a $20 million company next to me. A girl that was there looking at taking over her dad's company sat next to me and talked to her for a little bit. She's from Chicago. I had dinner 2 different nights with a couple different guys, and one guy had a business, Matt Turner, out of Dayton area. That's a whole other ball game, that kind of money. I had dinner with a guy who had a company about our size, and I had a dinner with a company the night after that with a dude that had a $1.7 million landscape architecture firm in Chicago, and he was my age. It sometimes makes you wonder what you're doing wrong, right? But it was really awesome. Tintinger in Chicago, and then Turner Landscapes in Dayton. So nice folks, really cool guys, and I hope to keep in contact with them. And even Jeremy Swihart, J Squared out in Dayton too, talking to him a little bit. Boy, Bo's jumping in now. He must have bad signal. So you got to have a strategic plan. It's very important to have a strategic plan. All that kind of stuff. We're almost through this, so I would sign off and just do it again later. But books, they gave a lot of books to read. The Great Game of Business. Jim McCutcheon had mentioned that. Todd Pugh, again, talking about rob and duplicate R&D. Another great bit of advice Todd Pugh gave was, if you can't figure it out, hire someone that can. Dayton's got a good little thing going on there, but a couple of those guys have worked from Grunder already. You know what I mean? So he's building and growing. What that dude is doing for the industry, I don't think will be recognized for a while. Palmetto, how you doing? So I think his legacy is really going to be really something awesome. Ultimately, Grunder's is. You got to figure out what works for you, of course. All this advice and all this information and content everywhere. You got to figure out what's working for you and your business, and you will know it. Matt LaMarche, there's the hero. You'll figure out what works for your business, but always be learning. Always be just filling your head with as much of this stuff as absolutely possible. But the rob and duplicate R&D out of Todd Pugh's company, I love that. I think it's absolutely genius. A great quote, too, was, owners have the business they deserve. So if your company sucks, there might be a reason for that. If your company's disorganized, there's a reason for that. If your company isn't doing well, there's a reason for that. If your company's not doing well or is doing well, there's a reason for that. So I thought that was a great quote, and it really kicked me right between the legs, because my company's not where I want it to be, organization-wise especially, and profit-wise especially. And those are things we want to tune up. So right now we have the business we deserve, and that's very apparent. So we're really gonna step this up. Let's see here. You need to always be in contact. They were saying, really be in contact with your bank, even if you're not in debt or anything like that. Just always be talking to your bankers, because there may come a time where you have a great chance to acquire a business or to buy a really good deal on a machine or whatever, and you want to have a great relationship with your bank. And I don't recommend getting in over your head debt-wise or anything like that. Do not do that. That will kill you. But I think there's times for it in a smart, strategic, leveraged position or whatever. So always communicate with your bank. Really good to be in contact with them. Because even when if you're not talking to them in the good times, you're not going to talk to them in the bad times. And you need to have that relationship so they know you and trust you and know you're going to take care of things if things get rough. Just general life advice from these guys: build wealth, trust, talk to financial planners. Get a long game going on your finances. They're talking about a guy who had been in business for 30 years, sold his company for $300,000, and that was his retirement. That's a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but to retire on, it's not really. So you set some vision, set some goals, talk to some good accountants and planners and guys that aren't going to rip you off, guys with your best interest in mind, and hopefully they'll help you out there. So time to think about that stuff big time. I'm 34. I didn't picture ever being 34. And, God, I wish I'd have really been plunking money away when I was even younger. That would have been nice. But here we are. Let's see here. Bartlett Tree, great company. They were talking a little bit, talking about standing out in a sea of sameness. That was a big deal. I think that's Grunder's thing. have a living and working budget. So important. Another book called Built to Last by Paul Weaver. Weaver Leather, again up in Northeast Ohio. Todd Pugh knows that guy real well, apparently. I use Weaver stuff for my horse equipment and all that kind of stuff. 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Grunder was really pushing that book. A really good one there. So, guys, in closing, that was kind of the basics of the notes. I took a lot more than that, but that's kind of the quick of it. My first talk scope went well. I'm oddly nervous for some reason. I guess because the focus is solely on me and what I'm just talking about here necessarily than the work or the job. So thanks for sticking it out, all of you that did, and the hearts and the shares and all that stuff. If I can ever help you out in any way, I will do everything I can to, or I know people are much smarter than me and I can send you to them to help you out. I think a lot of us are in these circles here that we know most everybody in the business here or in the social media world is willing to help, and I think it's a great thing about it. We're all willing to help each other. Guys, thanks a lot. I enjoyed this. This was fun. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to talk to anybody else anymore about the palmetto. I'm still rambling, buddy. But I'd love to talk to anybody else that wants to talk about this in depth on Snap, or snap me and I'll give you my cell phone and we can talk over that or whatever. So if I can help you out in any way, guys, let me know. Other than that, that's it. Thanks so much. Take care. I got a text. I got to swipe that out. And guys, we'll talk to you later. Thanks for sticking it out. As always, we'll see you. And hustle hard. Spring's coming. Get ready.